obviously the feedback from the Diablo 4 beta led to some changes in the game. And this news post was posted today, and it kind of goes over all that stuff. So we're just gonna read into the changes that are being made to Diablo 4 before launch. On the weekend of March 17th and March 24th, Sanctuary let out a cry for help, a cry that would be answered by hordes of wanderers who rode in on a nameless horse and loosen Lilith's grasp on the Sanctuary. During the early access and open beta weekends, these players sent countless demons back to the burning hells, obtained powerful gear, and saw Lilith's grand plot begin to unfold before them. Many of these players also took the time to leave valuable feedback on our official Diablo 4 forums and on platforms such as Reddit and Discord. After the early access and open beta weekend concluded, the development team read through all your feedback and reviewed gameplay data. Using this information, we have made a variety of fixes and updates to various systems in Diablo 4, all of which will be presented in the version of the game that launches on June 6th. It's actually June 1st if you pre-order. If you buy like the extra pre-order, it's actually June 1st at like, what time is it, 4 p.m. or 6 p.m.? I forgot what it was. They got the time zones messed up. It technically releases June 2nd for EU because it's at midnight. But in NA, via the time zones, it's June 1st at 7 p.m. Yeah, like 7 p.m. EST or 4 p.m. PST. None of this would be possible without the community dedication and love for the Diablo universe, to which we say thank you. So, first thing that they're doing, they're going to be talking about dungeons. Dungeon layouts. That was probably one of the main criticisms of the beta, right? Like, dungeons not being super linear, dungeon objectives, dungeon layouts, mobs, kill quest stuff. You know, like, there's, like, you'd always have, like, one wandering mob, and you'd have to, like, just pace around the entire map looking for it. One of the most common pieces of feedback we received is that players felt they were doing a lot of backtracking within certain dungeons. We have optimized multiple dungeons across all zones to minimize the need for backtracking. Pog! Here are the list of dungeons specifically in the Fractured Peak zone, which received layout updates. So this is actually really amazing. One of the main criticisms of the beta was this, dungeon layouts and everything else, and they actually made iterations and changes before launch. You love to see it. They specifically noted Caldera Gate, Defiled Catacombs, Derelict Lodge, Forbidden City, Hoarfrost Demise, Immortal Emancipation, Core Dragan Barracks, Smallwood, and Rimscar Caverns. These are all getting changed over here. And the developer noted a primary goal with the layout change was to reduce certain kinds of backtracking, which detract from a player's experience. An example of this change is that players previously needed to enter side rooms to interact with structure objectives, causing them to retread the same path. Now, many of the structure objectives have been repositioned along the main dungeon pathway, making them easier for players to reach and allowing them to repeatedly or readily explore the dungeon after defeating the structure. ARPG players love linear layouts, and that's just a fact, right? There's a few ARPG players and just like general game players that like to do wandering and just like random exploration, and they don't like backtracking a bunch. They like finding like secret objectives. They like doing puzzles in dungeons. But a majority of players just like a very, very linear, easy to read layout. And honestly, if you had some players design the perfect map, it would literally just be a drag strip, right? It would just be a straight line, and you would just rush out of the start and you would just kill stuff along the way. That's it. You wouldn't do anything else. You would just run straight down a straight line. You would kill stuff and you go find a boss. There would be no venturing to straight drag strip, and they would fucking love it. They're like, let's do it. And then dungeon events. The chance for an event to spawn inside a dungeon has increased from 10 to 60%. So like the little objectives, and I guess like those cursed chest events and stuff that you would randomly find in dungeons, they're increasing the event spawn rate. And then they're also doing some dungeon gameplay changes. To reduce the need to backtrack, small numbers of straggling monsters will seek out the player to help complete the kill all monster objective. Wow, that is actually a really insane change. That is actually a really good change, right? You have like the kill quest objectives, and I guess like little weak monsters will seek you out. Like what if the one monster that is left is like a rare or the butcher? Yeah, this is really good, right? So just to reduce backtracking, they'll have little monsters seek you out, so you don't have to just wander around mindlessly. When Animus is gathered, the player and nearby allies will gain 10 resources and reduces all active cooldowns by 1 second. Okay, this is like your little dungeon completion stuff. Reduce cooldowns too, okay. Depositing Animus channel time was reduced from 3 seconds to 0 seconds. Nice. Instant. People don't like waiting around. The time to rescue is reduced from 3 seconds to 1.5 seconds. They halved it. Instead of doubling it, they halved it this time. It's not Diablo 3, it's Diablo 4. They're having stuff, not doubling it. Yeah, just like the little rescue objectives in the dungeons, you know, there's like where people, you know, click them to free them. All rescue objectives now drop a health potion upon completion. Nice. Fill up your health pots a little bit. While carrying the ancient statue, bloodstone, mechanical box, or carving stone, you'll receive a momentum bonus, a 25% speed increase for you and nearby allies. These are the dungeon objectives to bring the object to like the pressure plate, right? Which a lot of people were critical of. So their solution was they're just going to give you a movement speed bonus when you grab this object. We'll make it feel like we'll make it feel a little better, right? Petals will have their channel time reduced from 2 seconds to 0 seconds. Returning a portable object to its pedestal now fully restores health, resources, and potion resets cooldowns of all nearby players. All doors will now generate a minimap ping when they are opened. That's good for group play. And all structure objectives in dungeons now have additional combat mechanics players must overcome. While our dungeons offer a variety of objects to complete, a player feedback stated that the action of completing each objective felt tedious, and it did. And we've seen this, for example, by other players. If you are standing at an objective too long, just doing a meticulous, boring task in order to further your dungeon experience, it gets old quick. You can take PoE, for example, right? This league. One of the main criticism of this Path of Exile League is you had to sit there and you had to channel in order to fill up the mobs, right? Increase the difficulty and get your rewards. I think these are all good changes. You don't want to just like have play. It'll get boring, right? Your first, like, you know, dozen times running the dungeon, they'll be fun, but after you're farming and you're just sitting there for 3 seconds to do an objective, it'll get boring. Yeah, I think this is a smart idea, reducing channel times, interaction times. Is there anything else that I would like to see done to dungeon stuff? They basically hit all the main criticisms from the beta. The monster density stuff. Well, monster density, okay, so the thing is, we don't know what the monster density in the end game is going to be like, right? So the story mode dungeons, I don't think are supposed to be like overly dense, but with nightmare dungeons where they're going to add affixes into the dungeons, and we don't know like how crazy it could get, that'll probably increase the density. The story mode is not supposed to be end game, right? And people just keep on saying that. Like, story mode is supposed to be your introduction, it's supposed to be your lore stuff. It's not supposed to be too complex. It's not supposed to be too difficult. You do have your difficulty settings, right, until you get to max level. But yeah, the story mode is just that. It's a story. It's not supposed to be end game stuff. And then what else is going on? We also hope that providing bonuses such as increased mobility while carrying certain objectives will streamline and vary the experience of completing objectives. The adjustment is merely a starting point. We intend to extend this philosophy to keys in a future update. Cool. Good stuff here. They also did some class balance changes too. General, effects like stun and freeze can be applied to elite monsters twice as long before they become unstoppable. So before they become immune. This is just like a straight up buff to any like any class that utilize CC. This is a straight buff, like Sorks, right? If you're using like different spells to freeze and stuff, this is a straight up buff. Reviewed class skills to confirm that all classes have access to sufficient skill that remove crowd impairing effects. Basically to give your character unstoppable, right? Because that's kind of like what you needed, right? You needed unstoppable for your character because some of those CCs, at least early on in Diablo 4, were really long. My one hardcore character that died, I was literally CC'd for 8 seconds straight, and I had unstoppable, but my unstoppable came from a legendary power, and it wouldn't let me use my unstoppable ability while I was CC'd, which I'm guessing was a bug. I'm not sure. Yeah, like I was just like CC'd for 7 seconds straight, and then just straight died. And my unstoppable skill wasn't usable even though it had unstoppable. And then many legendary powers have had updates to their effectiveness. So like, I wonder what legendary, I wish they showed like what legendary powers, I wonder what legendary powers they made adjustments to. We buffed it by 1,000%. No, I don't think they want the damage numbers getting too wild, but yeah, they buffed some underperforming legendary powers. And then they did some class specific changes. Barbarian, a flat 10% passive damage reduction has been added for the Barbarian class. Some skill tree passive had their reduction effects reduced to compensate. Oh, okay. I guess this is good for early on. But yeah, like when I did my Barbarian playthrough, I felt squishier than like my Necromancer and my Source. And like Barbarian, that's supposed to be your battled, hardened, face-to-face warrior. And the fact that it was so squishy, especially early on was like kind of weird. But Barbarian, once you got it leveled up in the beta, it felt really tanky with all your synergy. It was probably like one of my tankiest characters. They had like your different shouts, your damage reductions. The Whirlwind skill now deals more damage, consumed more fury. Dang, they buffed Whirlwind, one of the most iconic skills, but also consumed more fury. But maybe they don't want you using like shouts and everything else to just permanently Whirlwind only. And then the betas, you were able to permanently Whirlwind. We'll see what adjustments that leads to. Double swing skill enchantment refunds its full fury cost when used on a stun or knockdown enemy. Okay, Druid. What did Druid get? Companion skills will now deal heavily increased damage. I played a minion build on the beta and it felt kind of lackluster. Even though you had like legendary powers that would increase like the damage of your companions by like 300%, it still felt like the minion build felt the weakest out of every different ascendancy. It felt the weakest. By the way, companion skills are going to deal more damage too, and a lot of people are using companion skills with like different archetypes too, right? Like when you're playing like Wind Druid or LA Druid or like Pulverize, Melee, Shapeshifter, you would use companions also, and you just use their on activation abilities. All ultimate skills have had their cooldowns reduced for Druid. Almost every single build that I played for this character, which I played extensively during the open beta, you did not use an ultimate skill. Like the ultimate skill that just felt like at the current power level without like uniques and like sacred items and ancestral items and like the Paragon board and all the other stuff, the ultimate skills felt like very, very lackluster compared to all the other ones. So they are reducing the cooldowns of ultimate skills for Druids. Usability improvements have been made to Maul and Pulverize. Okay, so maybe we just like made it like using a non-shapeshift skill will transform a Druid back into their human form. And there's actually a legendary power that synergizes with this too. Like whenever you transform or like shapeshift constantly, they'll give you some bonuses. Now, Necromancer. What do they do to Necros? Some minions will die more often, requiring players to utilize corpses more often. Necromancer felt very, very overtuned in the beta. I remember I was playing my Necromancer, and my Necromancer, one single minion was hitting harder than my Druid was while leveling. Like, and you had an army of minions. Like, you didn't even have to do anything. You just like summon your minions on your Necromancer and they just went and killed everything. You just like sit there, right, on the objective, and it was just like they're just annihilating everything. I'm like, the early balance of Necromancer definitely seemed like off to everything else. They didn't really die. They did really, really good damage. And you can just go full minion build with like Corpse Explosion early on. Yeah, basically Necromancers, you're gonna have to like utilize Corpse and then just summon your minions a little more often, which kind of like makes sense. And you'll probably have to use like your on active effect of your minions too to like heal them and bonus them too. Many bonuses in the Book of the Dead have had their stat increase, so they compensated by increasing the Book of the Dead bonuses. The damage dealt by Corpse Explosion skill has been reduced. Wow, who saw that one coming? Okay, that was kind of expected. So they nerfed Corpse Explode a little bit early game, which basically just full cleared everything with one button. And then once you got your legendary affix, you just went into your form and you had permanent Corpse Explosion. The brightness of skeletal warriors and mages had been reduced. They weren't too bright for me personally, but you know, everyone has their own taste. What are they doing for Rogue? Updates for subterfuge skills have had their bonuses increase. Multiple passive skills have had their bonuses increase, and all imbuement skills have had their cooldowns increase. So they basically made subterfuge skills stronger, but also made their subsequent, so you're gonna essentially just have more damage during your burst cycles and then less damage when your skills aren't active. But you could almost pretty much have like permanent imbuement skilled up. I wonder how long they increase the cooldowns. Did they buff Druid? They did. Also Sorcerer, charge bolt damage with increase and the mana cost has been decreased. Cool. Decrease the damage of chain lightning or reduce its effectiveness against bosses. Yeah, lightning Sork was very, very strong. Decrease the cooldown for the incinerate skill enchantment bonus. Firewalls will now spawn underneath enemies more frequently when using its enchantment bonuses, and increase the lucky hit chance for meteor skill enchantment bonus. Whenever we introduce changes for our class, it is with the goal of making both them and their skills feel impactful and powerful. Your feedback has helped us uphold this ideal. Some players have adeptly noticed that certain skills were too powerful. One of our goals for skills is to have them to be interesting to wield and interactive in terms of itemization and combat feel. We made some changes to help in this regard. With one example being the Necromancer's minions, we made a change that makes them more vulnerable in combat, which will make Raising the Dead a more active component of Necromancer's gameplay. Launch is just the first step for our class balance journey, and you can expect further updates that iterate on the pillar of Diablo 4. Okay, so UI. Fixed an issue where the built-in screen reader was not reading key prompts, game option detailed and other UI text. Okay. Fixed an issue where actions could not be bound to mouse scroll wheel. Oh, this is like one of my favorite changes. I personally love having my movement bound to mouse scroll wheel, and I'm guessing that's what they're talking about. You can actually bind movement to mouse scroll wheel. This is like one of the best changes. Fixed an issue where evade couldn't be bound to right analog stick on controller. Okay, what else are they doing? Fixed an issue where evade couldn't be bound to right analog stick. Chat will now display on the left side of the screen when using the centered action bar configuration. Bro, having the chat orientation to the right was so weird. It was just like, I'm like, why? This is the only game that I know that has the chat on the right. It was just like, it was just different to be different. You could just have your chat on your left now. Perfecto. The character stats will be displayed by default when players click their materials stats button with their inventory. You know the funniest thing about this? I actually like the materials being displayed. And you're like, why would you like the materials why would you like materials displayed? Because what I found later on, at least when I was in the beta, I wasn't looking at my character stats as much. I was looking at what resources I need, and I wanted to determine whether or not I wanted to sell stuff for gold or break it down for materials. Does that make sense? So yeah, like when you're grinding endgame, I wasn't like, you know your character stats already, you know your synergies. I was more worried about how much gold I had and how many resources I had for re-rolling stuff. So the first thing I want to look at when I open my character tab was actually my resources. The best option would be for you to set a favorite. This is my idea. You can favorite which one you want to show up first. You can have your resources or you can have your character stats. Boom, I solved the issue. Customization, little favorite system, click the favorite, one and done. I'm pretty sure a lot of people probably have had that idea way before me. Okay, the move and interact inputs can now be mapped to one button, with the primary attack input being mapped to a secondary button. Hey, we're a normal ARPG now. This is actually amazing. You can just click to move. And the sans serif font used in game has been replaced with a new serif font. People complain about like the UI, the font, it being blocky, too boldy and stuff like that. What do the new font even look like? I don't even know what it looks like. Does anyone have like a side-by-side comparison? I know, I kind of wish that they would have showed like the UI with the new font. Boom. What's going on? Encounters fix multiple issues that allowed bosses like the Butcher to become unresponsive. Oh yeah, we had this bug quite a bit. One of the main things that would cause this issue is you would summon some type of creature on top of the Butcher and then it made him unresponsive and then you would just get a free kill. The Butcher has been reevaluated for difficulty and will present a greater challenge in world tiers 3 and 4. Oh man, I wonder how. Well, we never got to play any of the world tiers. That unlocks like once you get level 50 and you have to also complete what your capstone dungeon. But yeah, we didn't get to play world tiers 3 and 4. So I wonder how difficult the Butcher is going to be now that they've buffed it. But they actually buffed the Butcher in higher world tiers. And there are certain bosses that were reevaluated for melee character difficulty, resulting in changes in fight mechanics. People who call people crybabies. Some of the bosses in Diablo 4 were some of the worst melee fights I've ever encountered in any ARPG. Basically, the solution was have some type of skill that teleported you. Like for Barbarian, I just used lunge attack for leveling. Because every single time a boss would just try to make distance between you nonstop. And I'm like, I got a movement skill, I got shouts, but they move so often, like you just can't get your attacks in. You're just chasing them around, so. Good change. They're making adjustments to make some bosses a little more melee friendly and hopefully not flee as much nonstop and requiring to use like a gap closing generator or multiple movement skills. Fix an issue where vampire brutes using the shadow enchant affix would chain cast and pale. Wait, bro! That's how I died! Wait, that's how I died, bro! Remember I got CC'd for like 7 or 8 seconds straight. I even had unstoppable too, right? And it didn't matter. I just got CC'd infinitely till I died. My death was not in vain. Okay, sellers. Okay, so they're actually making changes to sellers too. Increase the chance for a dungeon event to occur in sellers. Sellers will now consistently reward a chest upon completion. Nice. Fix an issue where sellers would prematurely be marked as complete, and fix an issue where the guaranteed elite monster would be absent from a seller. Sellers felt very bland in the beta. You actually kind of spend, on a lot of sellers, you would spend more time in loading screens than actually doing the seller objective. You would walk in real quick, You would clear it out, and then you would walk out instantly. You didn't really get much loot. Every once in a while, there was like a triple goblin cellar that I didn't get a single time, even though I went into like almost every single cellar in the beta. But people did find a triple goblin cellar, and I guess they got some good loot from it. Yeah, they're just kind of like increasing rewards and putting in dungeon events for more loot also. So instead of just in and out, you might stand there, complete the dungeon objective, and get more loot afterwards. Yeah, the cellars were, I would say, mandatory, right? Because you had to do your zone completion, you had to do your objectives, and then that's something you have to focus on in all 5 base zones. General quality of life. Fix an issue where players could increase attack speed by move canceling attacks early on. Yeah, I think Ray's made a video criticizing this, but basically cancel casting your auto attack would give you quite a bit more attack speed. So if you wanted to min-max the game, you would have to essentially bind something to constantly stutter step for you. Also, in addition to that, fix an issue where characters weren't immune and untargetable after loading into an area. Bro, when I was playing hardcore, so many people were trolling with this stuff. This is a good change because you would transfer between areas, right? And there would be mobs there and stuff. People could leash stuff to you, all this other stuff. So this is a good change. This is a good anti-griefing change. Because if not, people would have just griefed a lot. Also, the reset dungeon button has been disabled. Oh, wow. I kind of expected them to do this because this was being abused. I'm guessing that they didn't want people farming dungeons the way that they were farming them, where you just found a high density area, you killed those couple elite mobs, and then you reset it and then auto teleported you out. Another thing is dungeon reset button was that's the other thing it was being used for, the cheat death button. If you're on hardcore mode, you ran out of potions, you encountered the butcher, you did anything, you could hit the reset dungeon, it'll teleport you out to safety. It would literally cheat death. So what this is going to force you to do is run the entire dungeon now, do the objective, kill the boss, and get the chest at the end, instead of doing partial runs. They did make adjustments like dungeon layouts and dungeon objectives and quality of life stuff. So yeah, they just want you doing the entire dungeon run instead of just doing partial runs. The entire dungeon should be rewarding. The dungeon shouldn't be balanced in a manner where only killing like 3 elite mobs right at the start is the best way to farm. That's just bad game design, right? You should be utilizing the entire dungeon, and the dungeon should be rewarding to clear. However, what is going to happen eventually is people are going to find the best dungeons, the best layouts. They're going to be 3% more efficient. They're going to be 3% more rewarding, and people are all going to gravitate towards those dungeons. And that's what people will do, and they are going to do. They're going to get huge sample size of every single dungeon. They're going to get all that data, and you're going to here are the best dungeons, the top 5 dungeons, the top 10 dungeons to farm in Diablo 4. They're a little bit more efficient, they have good layouts, and you get a lot of legendaries and uniques per hour. Yeah, there is some feedback changes that they didn't make, right? They don't want you to like run around with tab map open. But overall, I think this update's really good. They listened to a lot of the major feedback and concerns from the beta, and they are making a lot of good changes. I like to see this. Yeah, I like to see it, man.